tonight shall not be infringed. In just a minute, full reaction and analysis to the Supreme Court's decision surrounding your constitutional right to keep and to bear arms. And later, this country is facing huge problems, but the Biden administration, they're more interested in waging a war on nicotine, all while handing out crack pipes to drug addicts and leaving borders wide open for fentanyl and heroin and meth and cocaine. And all these other drugs that are killing up to 300 Americans a week. We'll have the very latest coming up. Plus, we'll bring you all of the lowlights from Karine Jean-Pierre's hard-hitting interview, in case you missed it, on The View from earlier today, which, despite all the softball questions, turned out to be a big challenge for Biden's brand new White House press secretary. Also tonight, look at your screen. They say you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, but if you're Kamala Harris, the same might be true for 100% of the shots you do take. We'll have some of that fun video straight ahead. But first, we turn to today's big news out of the U.S. Supreme Court. In a 6-3 landmark decision, the court struck down a New York state law forcing individuals to show proper cause in order to obtain a concealed carry permit. Now, this so-called proper cause provision is often difficult to prove. In a dangerous city like New York City, it's almost impossible to get a concealed carry permit. The state asks law-abiding citizens, they must provide evidence to the government that they qualify for the right to keep and bear arms that is given to them in the Constitution. They have to demonstrate some kind of imminent threat or danger they face. How about walking on the streets of New York or riding the subways in New York? And naturally, the law blocked many ordinary New Yorkers from carrying firearms outside of their home to protect themselves, but no more. According to the majority opinion authored by Justice Clarence Thomas, quote, "The constitutional right to bear arms in public for self-defense is not a second-class right subject to an entirely different body of rules other than the Bill of Rights guarantees." The court's syllabus that summarizes the opinion states, quote, "The exercise of other constitutional rights doesn't require individuals to demonstrate to government officers some special need. The Second Amendment right to carry arms in public for self-defense is no different. New York's proper cause requirement violates the 14th Amendment by preventing law-abiding citizens with ordinary self-defense needs from exercising their right to keep and to bear arms in public." In other words, our right to keep and bear arms is specifically defined and enumerated as our right in our Constitution. Now, in the dissenting opinion, far-left Justice Breyer, he tossed the Constitution right out the window, offered a purely emotional argument about guns and about violence, even evoking the massacre in Buffalo. But as Justice Alito pointed out, New York's, quote, proper cause law didn't prevent the Buffalo shooting in any way. Instead, New York's unconstitutional requirement only blocks law-abiding Americans from carrying a gun outside of their home for self-defense. Now this major ruling will set precedent for future gun laws and will almost certainly impact similar proper clause regulations. It's now in 6 other states. And coming up, we're going to show you how the media mob and Democrats are, well, taking this new ruling, spoiler alert, not particularly well. Here, first, on the legal side of all this, reaction to today's ruling and what it means. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz is with us. All right, well, let's talk about this 6-3 decision. Professor, I'll start with you. And you must show proper cause. I thought Justice Thomas, writing for the majority, kind of nailed it. There's no other constitutional right where you have to show just cause or proper cause.
Well, the New York State law was very broad and very vague. If you read the majority decision together with the concurring opinion of Justice Kavanaugh, who helped form the majority, it was 4 votes, and then Kavanaugh and Roberts comprised the 6, and then the 3 dissenters. Kavanaugh says this doesn't stop a state from requiring registration, background checks, how old you have to be, what kinds of guns. So it doesn't tell us very much about whether states can pass laws restricting AK-15s or requiring people to be 21 instead of 18. We're going to have to wait to see in subsequent decisions whether or not the thrust of the majority, which is what exactly the way you described it, or the concurring opinions limitations on the majority ultimately become the law. It's a work in progress.
You know, Greg, if you're talking about the right to carry, we're not talking about carrying an AR-15. It would normally be a revolver. It would be a pistol, 9mm or 40, whatever it happens to be, small, compact, for protection. That seems pretty obvious to me, but I wouldn't doubt that the state legislature in a liberal state like New York tries to work around this decision probably almost immediately. Do you concur?
Oh, they probably will. They no doubt will. The people who voiced utter shock and disbelief at today's decision are either clueless or they weren't paying attention. This was foreseeable, it was predictable, because it was consistent with the prior Supreme Court decisions. Justice Thomas waited until page 62 to point out that the Second Amendment isn't a second-class right. And over on CNN, I was amazed and amused to watch legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin throw a hissy fit as if that's some new and novel concept. If Jeff had actually read the decision, he would have noticed that Thomas's statement was in quotes. Where did it come from? It came from the last major Supreme Court decision 12 years ago, which Toobin either didn't read or he didn't remember. He also became unglued, saying that conservatives want no rules, no regulations. It's going to be a free-for-all, as if the Supreme Court would abide by that. No, the Supreme Court in the Heller decision stated very clearly that reasonable restrictions are permissible, and indeed the court then identified several restrictions that were perfectly okay. So we will have to wait and see whether things like background checks and red flag laws with due process are permissible, but I suspect those things would be.
Professor, does this immediately negate the current law in New York? In other words, would people in New York now have the ability to apply for a concealed carry permit and be granted it and not have to prove proper cause?
Yes, I think that's right. I think the New York law has been struck down, but there will be attempts by New York, as Greg says, to adapt to the Heller decision and to this decision and to permit some kinds of regulations. Remember that the Second Amendment talks about a well-regulated militia, and militias at the time of the framing were well regulated by the states. And so the states still reserve to themselves residual power to do reasonable regulations. What the court said today is that New York's regulation was not reasonable because it gives too much discretion to administrators to determine what constitutes good cause. If you feel frightened, if you've had a subjective experience, you can't get a permit in New York. You have to show that you've actually been threatened. And New York permits have been very, very hard to get. And so I think what the court is saying is if New York wants to tighten up its law and make it more objective, that was the word used by Justice Kavanaugh over and over again. So Kavanaugh's concurring opinion with Roberts is an invitation to the states to do better. Whereas I think Justice Thomas's decision set out a framework for analysis which suggests that not all efforts to tighten up the laws will be accepted. It's again a work in progress.
Let me go back to the point that you were making about a well-regulated militia. Our own government at the time defined the militia as the people as a whole. That's how it was defined by the government.
But it was states. And remember, there was a big fight between Hamilton and Jefferson about whether there should be a standing army. And the Second Amendment was part of a compromise to give the role of the armed forces over to state militias. So states do have some power. And, under a system of checks and balances and federalism, you're never going to get a perfect solution. There's always going to have to be a balance struck between state and federal, between the judiciary and the legislature, and we're going to see this work its way out over the next probably decade.
We'll give you the last word, Greg Jarrett.
Yeah, look, the states and the founders intended that the Bill of Rights, every single one of them, all 10 of them, be primary, be fundamental rights. That's how it was ratified. The trouble with the New York law is it shifted the presumption and the burden to the citizen to prove they had that right. That is inherently wrong according to our constitutional interpretation of the Second Amendment and the Bill of Rights.
All right, great, Jared. Thank you, Professor. Always good to have you as well. Thank you. Now, tonight, as you can imagine, Democrats, the mob, and the media, they're not exactly taking today's ruling very well. On Twitter, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse promoted a conspiracy theory that the Supreme Court was being influenced by, quote, dark money. Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom, he's dying for attention, proclaiming it was a dark day in America. One Democratic strategist tweeting, quote, well, sometimes mass shooters wear robes and don't have a gun. And then there's the out-of-work ESPN analyst Keith Olbermann. Poor Keith. He called for the Supreme Court to be dissolved and then went on to shout profanities at the justices and even referred to Amy Coney Barrett as a paralegal. Now, of course, Joe Biden is also upset about the ruling. The guy that left $80 billion in the most sophisticated weaponry of war in the hands of the Taliban doesn't trust his fellow law-abiding Americans to have a firearm. The guy that also told his wife, if I'm not here and there's any trouble, take the shotgun and shoot it twice. Take a look.
I think it's a bad decision. I think it's not reasoned accurately, but I'm disappointed.
We are disappointed by the Supreme Court's ruling today. The Second Amendment, as you've heard the President say, is not obsolete and permits common sense gun regulation.
We just received some very disturbing news from Washington that the Supreme Court of the United States of America has stripped away the state of New York's right and responsibility to protect its citizens with a decision which we are still digesting, which is frightful in its scope.
This decision has made every single one of us less safe from gun violence.
The fact that the court is coming down with its decision feels tone deaf, and I worry that it undermines the legitimacy of the court.
It seems, I don't even have the words, it seems stupid. No, it's worse than that. It's worse than that. It's not even stupid. It is. It's such a middle finger to New York.
Many of us are deeply concerned and troubled by the Supreme Court's ruling today. It, I believe, defies common sense and the Constitution of the United States.
Frankly, Katie, New York City will look a lot more like Alabama once this ruling goes into place, with guns widely available, with concealed carry.
The mayor, the governor, the vice president, the president, they're all protected by people that have guns. The media mob Democrats are predictably upset, but the Supreme Court is functioning properly. Unfortunately, we can't say the same for the other two branches. For example, over at the White House, well, your President Joe is having a really hard time with basic tasks. Here we go again. Take a look at your screen. Apparently, the White House staffer, look at that right there. They had to create this set of instructions for your president for his meeting today. That thing there, it reads, quote, you enter the room, you take your seat, you give brief comments, you thank participants, you depart. The only thing missing was you breathe in and you breathe out. Don't forget to breathe, Joe. And if you're really good, we'll give you an extra scoop of ice cream. Here with reaction, the co-host of The Five, Geraldo Rivera, and the host of Unfiltered. There's no other Dan Bongino. There's no such thing as a filtered Dan Bongino is with us. Well, I want to go back to what Clarence Thomas said here. The constitutional right to bear arms in public for self-defense is not a second-class right, subject to an entirely different body of rules than the other Bill of Rights guarantees. Now, they cut $1 billion from the NYPD. If you go in the subways on a regular basis, we're reading stories about people being thrown on the tracks and run over by trains, Geraldo. We have homicide rates now in most major cities, setting a record last year and on pace to set another record this year. Why shouldn't law-abiding citizens have the right to defend themselves, just like politicians do?
This is, I think, Sean, a catastrophe masquerading as constitutional process. This decision, Justice Thomas obviously never took the D train in rush hour. He never went to a crowded bar where people get rowdy. Never went to Yankee Stadium where people throw beers at each other. Now they're all going to have loaded, hidden handguns. This is a terrible, terrible decision. It is reckless and reprehensible, as the governor of New York suggests. It is detached from reality, as Mayor Adams says, the mayor of New York. Two of the cities that will be directly affected by this, Baltimore and Newark, are among the 10 most deadly cities in America. Do you think giving all those people guns,
Geraldo,
more
you're making my
guns,
point,
is going to
though.
make it any safer?
I will tell you, what about the law-abiding people that are the victims of crime? I would argue, yes, it would make them safer. Dan, we'll get your take.
Sean, you just totally nailed it. Geraldo just made your point, not his. He's like, man, all these cities, Newark and New York, with all these gun laws, people are being attacked by people with guns. Thank you, Geraldo. Case closed. You know the crime rate for legal concealed carry permit holders, you know their crime rate, Geraldo, is lower than that of police officers? I don't know if you know that. Police officers actually commit more crimes with guns than concealed carry permit holders. You probably don't know that. The people committing
I have it in my
crimes
hand. I
on
have it in
these
my
cities,
hand.
the people
From the police
let me
commissioners,
finish
from the
my
police
point.
commissioners of
I knew you were going to do this. I knew it. I knew it. You can't really. Can you try once to let me, just one time? Just once.
All right,
Thank
Dan,
you.
finish your thought. Go ahead.
Concealed carry weapon permit holders have a lower crime rate than police officers. The reason the cities you just cited, Newark and New York, where I was a police officer, you were not, have a crime problem is because criminals don't go through the legal process. They get a Saturday night special gun off the street.
Okay.
They prey on innocent people who now have no right to defend themselves because they obey the law and can't get guns in New York.
From Bill Bratton, who you respect, police commissioner of New York, former police commissioner Charlie Beck of Los Angeles, quote, the increased presence of concealed handguns, which follows from less restrictive permitting regimes, leads to higher rates of both police and citizen fatalities. This is from the 50 big career, big city police
I have a
commissioners.
question. Let me ask you a
In a
question.
signed letter.
What is an innocent law-abiding?
I would bet that the cops in the 7-5 precinct agree with me.
What is an innocent law-abiding citizen that lives in an area that has high crime, high homicide rates, violence, rape, all these horrible crimes? What happens when they get attacked? What are they supposed to do, Geraldo? What do you tell them? Oh, just scream, call the police, even the best response times. The only way to defend yourself is if you're prepared to defend yourself.
We work together to refund the police. We work together to empower the police.
But what happens in that moment when that person attacks you? You know, you don't have time to dial 911.
The OK Corral? This is the shooting at the OK D train is what this is going to be.
So you would leave them. So I want to be clear here.
Can I respond?
You would leave them defenseless. I want to know that you would leave people defenseless.
Sean, the odds on your defending yourself with your hidden loaded handgun, you know who's going to get shot? You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. You're going to shoot your kids.
I've been carrying I've had a license to carry my whole adult life. Damn.
2 points. Number one, what he said about the gun concealed carry permit holders does not comport with the data. Gun ownership rose dramatically through the 90s and the 2000s and 2010, while gun crimes and crime rates went down. So that's just not true, although I believe in data.
Well,
Second,
I don't know
it's tragically, I mean, it's really tragic that you actually believe that criminals are going to go through a background check. It's really, it's almost like laughable that you believe. I was a cop. I was on the street.
Did you ever have a bar fight? Did you ever have a? Do you ever elbow someone on the subway?
That's why my face looks like this.
Do you ever have a road rage?
That's why my nose looks like this too. Geraldo, I'm not a criminal. Look at my nose sideways.
What if they all had loaded hidden handguns, Dan?
Can I answer your question? One quick point. I am not a criminal, Geraldo. I've been in fights. I never once thought about pulling out a gun and jacking someone with a gun because I'm a law-abiding gun owner. You cannot seem to make the distinction between the two.
Anybody who has spent any time on the streets of Baltimore and Newark and Los Angeles
let me answer the question. If the guy who broke your nose and the guy who we both share one thing in common, our noses were broken, was a real mutt, he'd probably pull out a gun, God forbid, and do something. That's a criminal. Guys like you and me don't do that. There's a difference. And the guy who would have shot you, Geraldo, is not going through a darn background check. I've interviewed hundreds of these guys. They laugh at gun
Eric
laws.
Adams,
They
the
think
new
they're
mayor of New
hilarious.
York. Eric Adams, the new mayor of New York, is struggling to tamper down this rising malignant crime wave that's hitting the city.
Who's committing the
he
crimes?
Is working
Is it
day and
legal
night.
gun owners?
Now here's a guy
Who's
that now
committing
has
the
to.
crimes?
Now you have to tell your cops. Now you have to tell your cops when they go out on patrol at 2 in the morning that everybody has a loaded hidden.
But the criminals already have them, Geraldo. We're talking about law-abiding. Criminals already have them, Geraldo. They, by their very nature, don't obey the law. What part of that are you not getting?
And you can have all of these guns available, and and the younger brother, and the father, and the uncle, and the neighbor.
Let me give. Dan's going to get the last word. Dan, you get the last word.
You asked me. I want to ask you a question. Down here in Florida, you know, the gunshine state, everybody's got a concealed carry permit. Why isn't it a problem down here?
Great question.
You don't have any subways. You don't have any subways. You don't have Yankee Stadium.
Now it's a subway.
You don't.
Geraldo, that's weak.
If we have
No way. That's a weak answer, Geraldo.
We have malls. Yeah, we have
Baltimore,
a lot of people are hot and angry down here.
Geraldo.
L.A.
Geraldo, all I want for the people in New York and for honest law-abiding citizens is the right to have the same protection that Mayor Adams has, that Kamala Harris has, that Joe Biden has, that Governor Hochul has. They deserve the same right, and now they have it, whether you like it or not. Thank God. All right, appreciate both of you. Thank you. When we come back, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre joined the ladies of The View for a predictably hard-hitting interview. All right, now struggling White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre appeared on that hard-hitting news show on ABC The View earlier today, where she was lobbed one softball after another, including being asked how she could convince Americans that inflation and gas prices are not Joe's fault. Take a look.
The buck stops with the president, to paraphrase Harry Truman, with the president's handling of inflation and the economy hitting lows in recent polls. How do you make the case to voters that his economic policies are working, that it's not his fault, that inflation is a worldwide problem, that the gas prices are not Joe Biden's fault? How do you do that?
Well, you just said it, Joy, which is what we're seeing with gas prices, what we're seeing with inflation, even the cost of food going up. It is a global challenge, and a lot of that is connected to Russia's war. And another thing that he was able to do is pass the American Rescue Plan, his plan that only Democrats voted for. And now you fast forward to today, we do have some unique strengths. We do have a strong economy.
Really? Okay, keep telling yourself that. Now, it's been a rough tenure for Karine Jean-Pierre at the Biden White House. Here's just a small sample, including when she blamed the wind for Joe Biden's tripping 3 times while attempting to climb the stairs to Air Force One. Windy day. Take a look.
What we're trying to say, what I'm trying to say to you, is that the economy is in a better place than it has been historically. And so we feel here at this administration, and other experts as well, is that we feel that we are in a good position to take on inflation.
Does the president have the stamina, physically and mentally, do you think, to continue on even after 2024?
Don, you're asking me this question. Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. You know, I can't even keep up with him. We just got back from New Mexico. We just got back from California. That is not a question that we should be even asking.
Saw the president take a fall on the stairs. Is he doing okay?
As you know, it's pretty windy outside. It's very windy. I almost fell coming up the steps myself. He is doing 100% fine.
Not a question that we should be asking. I can't even keep up with Joe Biden. I guess the press secretary is in really bad shape. And my favorite, the wind blew him over. I don't know what's worse, that he fell 3 times or they blame the wind and he's so weak that the wind can blow him over. It's not like there was a tornado. Here with reaction, Fox News contributors Charlie Hurt, Leo 2.0 Terrell. Leo, I see Leo laughing. For her to just lie like that about the economy, let me set one thing straight. Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, debunked the lie about inflation and even said inflation was already at record highs. Same with gas prices, long before Putin ever invaded Ukraine. So that lie is out of the way. The economy being the best ever and we're in the best position. No, we're not. There's nobody with any economic background that's making that case, Leo. Even Lawrence Summers is saying it's pretty bad.
She's lying to the American public, and we're not buying it. You know, let's just be very honest to the Fox viewer. She's not qualified. She was picked based on gender politics, her gender, her sexual orientation, her skin color. It's embarrassing. Here's the situation. On the subjects that she's discussing, you didn't play the clip where she's looking in a book and she's reading from a book. I don't need her to read to me. I don't need her to read a book to me. She doesn't. The American public doesn't need her to read a book. She can't get fired because if you fire her, then you're a racist. But you know, when you have a person like Charlie on the show, and if they were to ask her questions, she doesn't have a mastery of the subject she's discussing. She was picked for all the wrong reasons. Final point. I hate to say this, Jen Psaki was better.
Oh boy, that's saying a lot. I'll circle back on that one. Charlie Hurt, your take.
Yeah, no, it's true. You know, Jen Psaki we might find out that Jen Psaki was the best press secretary this administration could ever have. Partly because, you know, what we're seeing here is so bad. And it's almost to the point where you sort of feel sorry for her because she is so far in over her head. And they have been dealing with the press for so long that has sort of not only gone along with all of the sort of the lies and the nonsense that the administration pushes, but have been supported at every turn. But now we're in different territory now. We're in a situation where we have serious crises all around the world. Most importantly, an economic crisis, a security crisis here at home, and things are getting very serious. It's so bad that you have the ladies of The View trying to sit her down and explain to her, okay, you need to explain to the American people, you need to give some explanation for why to defend this administration. Now, obviously, the talking points that Joy Behar puts out there were laughable and ridiculous. But the fact that she had to explain to her that she needs to do something like this tells you an awful lot. And the truth is, there isn't a good answer. This administration can't defend the policies that they've put in place that have created so many of these crises.
But this is the problem. Leo, I'll throw this to you, is that these are the very policies that Joe Biden ran on. I'm going to eliminate fossil fuels. It's gone. It's done. I'm getting rid of it. Look at me in the eye. I promise you, I'll end our dependence on fossil fuels. These were his stated policies. Now he's implemented them, and the predictable result when you artificially lower the world's supply of energy, the lifeblood of the economy, is higher prices. Higher prices at the pump, but they're saying it's okay until we get renewable energy. What renewable energies? When are we getting these renewable energies? What exactly are they talking about? They just say these things. And the one thing that they've been saying lately that's driving me insane is Joe has done everything he can possibly do. Leo, he hasn't, because he can go back to the policies that gave us $2 a gallon gasoline, and that they refuse to even look at.
You're 100% correct. There's over 280 million cars that depend on gasoline. Less than 2% are electric. He insults the intelligence of the American people when he's going to give us a tax holiday, gas tax holiday, and save us 18 cents. That's an insult. But here's the problem. I tweeted out today, if he want to increase his poll numbers, restore the Trump policies today.
So I think you do that. By the way, it's saving somebody with a Toyota Camry about $20 over the summer. Not exactly big savings. Charlie Hurt will give you the last word.
Yeah, no, I mean, you look around. This is the utopia the Democrats have been promising for forever, and this is what you get with all of their policies. And you're exactly right. This is what they've been promising us, and we now see it in action. The good thing is there are elections coming up. And in this fall, and then in 2 years, And I feel pretty confident the Democrats are going to be taught a lesson. Whether they'll learn the lesson or not, I don't know. But they're going to be taught a lesson.
All right, and straight ahead
true.
tonight.
He's right.
Thank you, Leo. And Charlie, thank you. All right, straight ahead. The FDA officially banning Juul e-cigarettes. Far-left cities decriminalizing drugs at the same time. We have open borders, fentanyl, let's see, meth, cocaine, heroin, killing 300 people a week. But they're not focused on that. Pam Bondi, Buck Sexton will break it down. Rampant hypocrisy, insanity, and by the way, did you know your government makes $12 billion a year on selling cigarettes? Why didn't they ban them? Straight ahead. All right, now the Biden FDA today followed through on banning Juul e-cigarette products over youth vaping concerns, they say. But ask yourself, why aren't they going after other brands of e-cigs? Why are they singling out just one of the companies? And how does the government justify, because they're making $12 billion a year off the sale of cigarettes with cigarette taxes, are they not going to ban all of them too, or is that too much money in their coffers? Why not raise the age, if you're concerned about kids, to 21 and make it simple like buying a beer? Why is Biden not focusing on securing the border? There are estimates that 90% of the heroin in this country, fentanyl, methamphetamine, come into this country from our southern border. We're losing around 300 Americans a week in overdose deaths. And by the way, it comes to states like Portland. We showed you last night, they're decriminalizing all of these hard drugs. Methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, and yes, even fentanyl. And by the way, in comes the Biden administration funding the so-called safe smoking kits with crack pipes, but somehow they want to ban this, a Juul, for people that vape. What about adults? You think it's maybe time for a little balance here? The FDA action, by the way, won't target individual use. They took all my thunder away. In other words, it's legal for me to have this. It's legal for me to smoke this. It's legal for me to, do whatever I want. But I think as of next Wednesday, I understand, they have to take Juul off the store shelves and stop retail distribution. All right, that took away my desire to hit the Juul on air since they won't be coming to arrest me. Darn, it's such a good opportunity. I know the liberal media mob is probably devastated. Anyway, here with reaction, on a more serious note, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, along with the co-host of the Buck and Clay show, Buck Sexton, is with us. Pam, I look at this and I'm like, okay, we have all these opioid deaths, overdoses. They have open borders. They're not doing a thing there. We don't even do background checks on people that are processing and releasing into the country, and they get a free phone. They don't get a COVID check, and they don't get a vaccine mandate, so they get preferential treatment. Why are they going after this one company?
Sean, and we can't talk about this enough, and I'm so glad we're talking about it tonight, because the unintended consequence of this is, as you said, it's not illegal to possess or use, so you're safe tonight. But when they take it off the market, what teens are going to do, they're going to go to the black market. And when they do, it's going to be laced with fentanyl, just like we've seen it my entire career when things like this happen. That is an unintended consequence. So parents, you need to talk to your kids, because if they can't buy it legally, and adults, if you can't buy it legally, be careful. If you're buying it on the street, it will be laced, most likely, with something else, and you can be hurt. And yes, they're putting out crack pipes. They're giving out needles for heroin addicts. Taxpayer dollars are paying for those. So, the hypocrisy.
Well, how do they justify making $12 billion? How do they justify making $12 billion on cigarettes every year? Buck, I'll throw that to you.
Yeah.
And there's clearly no principle involved here for them. But again, Sean, when you look at just the recent history of the FDA and how they were asleep at the wheel on the baby formula issue, which has now caused a baby formula shortage that is still ongoing all across the country. The FDA joins the CDC and the FBI and some other three-letter agencies as places that just can't seem to get the job done and continue to engage in either politicization or distraction like this. There is no principle they can point to for why this would be banned, but cigarettes would continue. And then when you add this also just to the mentality that you've seen from the White House of saying that there should be chemical gender transition drugs or puberty blocking drugs for children, and yet here the FDA is stepping in to say, but we're doing this
to protect the children. I feel like they don't really know what that means, or does it mean what they think it does?
Yeah, and the same group of people, Pam, that without any science behind it, they want to give vaccines to kids under 5, and Fauci even admits they didn't have any studies that show the effectiveness of it, or maybe the negative impact of it. I'm just trying to understand the logic. Why this one company? Because other vaping companies are not at all impacted by this. Why they single out this one company that already had pulled out their flavored brands that they had, like mango and passion fruit, whatever you call them, that younger kids seem to like, and they kept the more traditional cigarette flavors, which are like tobacco and menthol, and that's it. Why would they pick on one company, and meanwhile these other companies are selling the flavored vape, I guess pods, whatever you call them?
Well, Sean, it sounds like the company Juul will appeal, and it sounds like they probably will be successful because they don't have, it says the FDA, they don't have the data to back up a complete ban on this one company. So they probably will be successful. But again, in the meantime, I think people are going to go to the black market to buy products, and it's going to be a problem.
This is really scary. You really think what they're going to do is when people go to the black market, you suspect that people that buy, they're not looking for weed, they're just looking for nicotine, and you suspect that they're going to lace these with fentanyl. You think that's going to be common?
I do, Sean. I saw it when I was Attorney General with people, adults, buying Adderall, Xanax on the street. It was being laced with fentanyl, and people were dropping dead. They still are. That's why you should never buy anything on the street, even if it's an Adderall or a Xanax, nothing, because of that problem. And now it will be happening with these electric cartridges because you can't buy them legally. So people need to be very careful.
And then they sell cigarettes. Can you explain that part to me? You know, the ones with the chemicals and the additives that we're told cause the cancer?
And the secondhand smoke that everyone gets when you're around cigarettes as well.
Yeah, and people addicted to nicotine, they say it's more addictive, Buck, than even heroin.
Yeah, of course. I mean, maybe they have better lobbyists, or some of the folks who are sending checks from the other companies know which palms to grease. I mean, Sean, it just doesn't make sense. But again, when you're looking at a federal bureaucracy and a Biden apparatus that is in such disarray, you have to expect that there be this kind of cognitive dissonance operating at all levels all the time, because who's really steering this ship? I mean, I'd like to see them fix the baby formula crisis and figure out if it's going to be, 8 boosters or 5 boosters or however many they want the 5-year-olds to get before the FDA starts arbitrarily pulling products off the market and telling us that they're doing it to protect the kids from what could be seeping out of the product. They're not sure yet. They'll get back to us at some point in the future. Sounds like the federal government doesn't know what it's doing these days, Sean. Not a surprise.
Last question, legal question, Pam. So if it's not illegal to possess it and it's not illegal to use it, which means they won't arrest me, what if you go, can you buy it from another country? Is that going to be legal?
They can't stop you from buying it from another country and importing it, I'm sure. But yes, they cannot stop you from using it. They cannot stop you from possessing it, because the FDA, they don't have that power. Nor is DOJ going to ever try to create something where they could enforce something in that manner. So yes, you can buy it somewhere else, but my fear again, don't buy it on the street.
I think well said. All right, Pam, thank you, Buck. Good to see you. Thank you. Coming up, another day, another blunder. Bad day, Kamala Harris. Wait till you see what happened this time. We have the tape, Pete Hegseth. Wow, we got big news about Pete coming up next. Now yet another bizarre blunder for Vice President Harris, this time involving basketball. Yesterday, her office posted a video of Kamala Harris sinking a shot. Good for her. They left out the first 5 shots where she missed. Watch. All right, of course, Harris says jump shot is the least of her problems. We're just having fun with it. Anyway, her approval continues to hit one low after another. Americans continue to lose confidence in the administration. Here with reaction, author, get this, big news, debuting #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, Battle for the American Mind. Our friend, Fox and Friends weekend co-host, Pete Hegseth. First, congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Sean.
I'm not sure if I would have gone as far as to take a Harvard Business School diploma and ruined it, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. Congratulations.
You got to do what you got to do. Sean, thank you to your amazing audience. Thank you to you for giving me the platform, both on TV and radio, to talk about it, and the amazing viewers at Fox. God bless. Everybody, my co-author David Goodwin. It's I think the right topic at the right time. As parents are looking for answers in K through 12. So thank you very much, Sean. I really appreciate it. And Harvard can keep their degree. I don't want it. They're not the gatekeepers.
Wait a minute. I disagree with you on this part.
Listen to
you earned that degree. You earned it.
Sure.
Okay, so you
sure,
went to
I did. I earned it. I worked. But I was doing it for the wrong reasons because I wanted to get the best degree out there. Turns out it's a bunch of Marxists teaching critical theory, and once we're woke to the reality of what they're doing and doing to our country,
okay, but
we
guess
shouldn't
what?
affirm them by validating them
Pete,
and thinking they're special.
I can stick up for you and tell you they did not indoctrinate you. You're still your own person. You survived it. There was a book years ago written by former Congressman John LaBoutelier, Harvard Hates America. Boy, he was way ahead of the curve, right?
Yes, he sure was. And that's why I don't want to affirm it. So, yes, I survived it, but we can't have a nation of survivors. We need a republic full of free thinkers who have liberated minds through a real liberal arts education. Harvard is doing the opposite, so let's stop affirming them and other Ivy League wackos like that. Build our own ecosystem of universities and high schools, as we talk about in Battle for the American Mind, that pump out patriots and free thinkers that we're going to need if we're going to save this country. I know you agree on that front. And so Harvard, see you later. I don't want it. I don't want it one bit.
All right, well, you still have it. It's still on your resume if you ever need it, but you're staying here for a long time. All right, here's what I do want to ask you, though. Obviously, when people go to the ballot box, and I'm hoping for a wave election year, I don't have a crystal ball, I can't tell for sure, but it looks like it's lining up that way. And certainly inflation, record 41-year high. Certainly high gas prices will be on the ballot. The failure in Afghanistan, the war in Europe, everything in between. You can't point to a single success. But issues like education and law and order, they'll also be on the ballot. We saw that in Virginia. We have 30 seconds.
And rightfully so. It's a gut check moment for parents and grandparents. What is the government and government schools doing to your kids? Not just your wallet and your freedoms, which we saw during COVID, but the future of your kids. And right now, what did Kamala Harris make? 1 out of 6. That's 16%. That's about right for their success so far in the administration. People are going to vote that out and reject it. We have some hope because parents are waking up and because of work guys like you do every night, Sean. Thank you.
Pete Hegseth, #1, The Battle for the American Mind, New York Times #1 bestseller. We're proud of you. Congratulations. Great book, and I hope people get it. Amazon.com, Hannity.com, and bookstores everywhere. More Hannity next.